I'm hustling today. I am working hard for my money. I'm working hard for that money.
Well, welcome everyone to another episode of
Case Files with Kat
and Ashley.
Whoop, whoop.
Are you drinking? It sounded like you needed a drink when I was...
I did. Oh, I did. And yes, I sent a text message downstairs. Can someone in this house bring me a beer?
So what are you drinking? Or do you not have the beer yet?
It's just the Sprite. It's just the Sprite.
No, okay. Well, I'm drinking the same beer as last week because I got a 4-pack. So for the next 2 episodes, that's what I'll be drinking. But just real quick, if you're in Louisiana or you're in Houston and you're near Urban South, they have a beer right now that it's like grape and strawberry and something. Anyways, it tastes like peanut butter and jelly. Like it's a peanut butter and jelly type beer, and it is delicious.
What?
It is so good. I bought a 4-pack. I don't. Anyways, it is so good. So if you're near either of the Urban South locations, or you have the ability to buy Urban South wherever you are, that one is a good one.
Is that like you drink one and then that's it? Mm-hmm. You know, like you would have more than one because remember 2. that mangoes free beer that I had. It was like I had one. I didn't buy multiple. It was sold separately. So I just, Jason had one, I had one. I'm like, man, I should have gotten more than that. And he's like, I don't know that I would have had another one after it, even though it was so good.
Normally when I go to Urban South, like I like the beers on tap. I don't like them from a can. And so normally I don't get anything to go. I go straight there to drink it. But this one, I put it on our Instagram account. It's grape, strawberry, marshmallow, and peanut butter. It's like their version, and it's so good. It's one of their triple dipped beers. They go through beers a lot, so I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to get it again, so that's why I went ahead and bought cans.
Oh, well, I'm wondering if I'd like that. I love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but would I like to drink it? I don't know. We'll see. It's really,
really good. And then I also had a different IPA, so had an IPA at.
Are there pigs flying?
I know, it's crazy. Crazy. I still like the first one I had, which is extra fuzzy. So if you're not a big IPA drinker, the extra fuzzy has lactose in it, which makes it kind of balances out. So it's not super hoppy. It's really good.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you've ever had it, but it's good. Anyways, so that's the little beer update. Anywho, did you just want me to ask my question of the week, or like what are we doing? I don't ever know what we're doing.
The one of the children brought me a beer, and it's I think I had it last week. I don't know. I must have. It's the New Belgium B2K IPA. I don't know. I don't think
you had. Oh my god. Oh, maybe you did. But I
feel like I had it before, so I didn't ask for a specific beer. So this is what I get.
You got a child delivery service.
This is why you have children, people.
To bring you beers. Okay. So my question of the week was, other than Morgan Freeman, who would you want to narrate your life story? Like if someone was going to narrate your life story, who would you want?
Okay, so it was funny because I actually read it ahead of time, and because I knew that I wouldn't have an answer, but I still don't. But I read it, and then I asked Jason, and Jason, I said, who would you want to narrate your life story? I didn't preface it with anything, and then he starts to say Morgan Freeman, and I go, but not Morgan Freeman. I had to clarify. He was like, damn it. So he said David Keith, who is an actor, and he has a huge list of films that he's worked in and TV and commercials. You would recognize him if you looked him up. So go ahead and look him up. David Keith. I honestly couldn't think of anybody that I was like, does this person have to look like me? And then I was like,
who would you want,
Who would I want?
Not someone who's going to play your role, but narrate it,
So I picked Leslie Jones.
Oh,
and
that's a good one. She's funny.
She's funny. And he goes, do you want a narrator or do you want commentary? And I'm like, Did you hear her commentary on the Olympics? That's who I want narrating my story. I'm like, I think it would be hysterical. Like, what the fuck did this girl do? Look at this. Watch this. Watch it. Like, wow.
I love her. She is so funny.
She's so funny.
Mine is not going to come as any surprise to anyone. I'd want Aubrey Plaza because I feel like we have the exact same dry humor. And she would
just be dry, and
I feel like she would do such a great job of telling my life tragedies. It would be great.
That dark, sarcastic humor about your life. I
love it. And so that's definitely who I would go with. She's fucking great. So that would be my answer. We had some good answers. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to read those for you later.
So tonight is, you do actually have to answer the trivia after the first little part because, we haven't put you on the spot in a while. Guys, it's great. We need to start doing videos sometimes. The first is an intelligent or traditional ghost is kind of like Casper in the sense that the ghost is connected to the site or people in some way. So now, blank are entities that have never had a mortal human form. A, demons. B, poltergeist. Or C, ghost.
I'm going to go with B.
No, demons. I thought it was B too.
Oh,
it's demons.
Man.
Demons have never had they themselves have never been human.
Oh, so are poltergeists just like ghosts that are angry and that they fuck shit up, or is it? I'm just cussing a lot today.
Poltergeists are supernatural beings that are responsible for physical disturbances such as loud noises and objects being thrown away. It's more of like a spirit. They say it can be created by like people's energy. Like, you can actually create one from a lot of negative energy.
Oof.
A long time ago, one of the theories that I read was that poltergeists could actually be created by teenage girls going through that were just starting their periods and stuff, and like their craziness would cause poltergeists, which I thought was an insane theory. I don't know how they got to that, but I did read that quite a bit. But it's a disembodied spirit or supernatural force. So it's more of like a force, not necessarily like a ghost.
Interesting. Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Should have known that. Damn it.
Blank ghost, like banshees, appear to family members to herald the death of another family member. A, messenger. B, poltergeist. Or C, crisis apparitions. I'd never heard of half of these things.
I have not heard of a crisis apparition, and it makes me feel like that's the answer.
The answer is a messenger ghost.
Oh, God damn it!
I will give you a hint. There's only two more, and each one of them has, none of the answers can be repeated. So a messenger was number 3. Messenger ghosts, like banshees, appear to family members to basically warn the death of another family member. Demons are entities that never had a mortal human form, and poltergeists are more like disembodied, supernatural. Okay, so this is the next one. Blank are ghosts that interact with human beings. This can be for good or bad. They're said to hide objects, frighten people, throw objects, or plead for help. A, messenger. B, traditional apparitions. C, crisis apparitions. Or D, poltergeist. This should be a lot easier. You've already ruled out 2 of the answers.
It's not messenger, and it's not demon. So
it's not poltergeist.
Oh, that wasn't an answer. I just asked before, so it's not poltergeist. So is that regular ghost?
It's traditional apparitions.
Traditional apparition.
Or ghosts that interact with human beings. And I'm just going to say the last ghost one because you would. There's only one answer left. So the crisis apparitions, which I had never heard of before.
Okay, I want to hear about all this.
I have never heard of them before. Are ghosts who appear to inform someone of impeding danger. So it would be like a ghost showing up to warn you or kind of give you some kind of you know, like, hey, this is going to happen to you, like, or don't go in there or whatever. Basically, crisis apparitions form. There's some kind of spirit or ghost that show up to warn you of impeding danger.
What some may call a guardian angel.
Yes, exactly. Something similar.
Boom.
So, boom, in case you couldn't guess, my story is kind of paranormal related tonight. It does involve lots of things. Ghost, murder, true crime, unsolved cases, all sorts of fun things. Yeah, good times. So I'm just going to go right into it. It's a story that when I first heard of it, I was like, what the F? Like, I was like, there's no way this could be a real story. This did not really happen. I looked it up and it actually happened. Like I said, it has a little bit of everything and it's really crazy. It's not a very long story. In most of the stories we tell, the interesting part is like who committed the crime or why they committed the crime. But in this one, it's how it was actually solved that's very interesting. And it's known as one of the most shocking murder cases in Chicago's history for the way it was solved. Not for the way it was committed or any of that. It was about how it got solved.
Wow. So
just in advance, I'm probably going to butcher every single name in this story. It is an English story, but you know, I can't speak English. So just getting that out of the way. Teresita
sure.
is how it looks. Teresita.
I would say Teresita.
She was born in the Philippines in 1929, and she moved to the United States in the 1960s to study music. She ended up later becoming a respiratory therapist at a hospital called Edgewater Hospital in Chicago. She was described as being very quiet, unassuming, like she kept to herself. She was very polite. People, like, after what happened to her, people said that she was like the last person they would expect to be the victim of any kind of crime, period. Just because she was so friendly to people and she was just so quiet and just like really, you know, like she didn't go to bars or anything like that. She really just kept to herself. On February 21st, 1977, so not really that long ago, around 9 p.m., the fire department was called to put out a fire at Teresita's apartment. Once they got there and got the fire under control, what they saw next, they described left them clueless, right? Like, they found her body. She was naked. She was under a burning mattress. She had a butcher knife in her chest. It was just a single stab wound that was in her chest. The investigators believe that the fire had obviously been set up to cover up the murder itself. The evidence that was present made it seem like she was a victim of a sexual assault. However, when the reports came back, it showed she had actually not been raped at all. So she wasn't sexually assaulted. She didn't actually die from the stab wound. Like, it was crazy. Like, they couldn't understand why it was staged this way. They knew the fire was clearly to cover up the evidence, but they didn't know what the motive of the crime was. They didn't know why they made it look like a sexual assault, but then also like a murder. You know, like it was all over the place. And so
I have a question.
Yes.
So you said that there was a stab wound from the butcher knife, but that's not how she died. So how did they determine that she died?
She was strangled, basically. Like, the stab wound contributed to it, right? But it was a single stab wound that was basically made to look like a murder. Like, that's not, and then the fire also contributed to it. Like it was all confusing because they didn't know what order things happened in or why it was like that or anything. Like, they had literally nothing to go on, right? And so there was again no apparent motive for the murder. There was very little physical evidence due to the fire. The only thing that they found remaining, the only thing that was not burnt in the room that she was found, was a memo that read, "Get theater tickets for AS," like in the initials AS. So the investigators at the time, they didn't really suspect a robbery because, again, they thought that she was sexually assaulted or murdered. And also, there was no way to tell what was even missing from the apartment had she been robbed because it was literally all burnt in the fire. So, and there wasn't like someone else living with her that could say, hey, these things are missing. So they believed that this was simply after they got the reports back that showed it wasn't a sexual assault. They believed it was just a murder. There were no witnesses, there was no evidence, and no one could think of a reason why someone would attack this particular woman. Like the coworkers, the friends, the family. Like, of course, everyone always says, oh, they were so, wonderful and whatever, but not a single person could find a reason why someone would attack her. So they were clueless. And then they had no leads. So the case really kind of went cold. They did have a few small amounts of suspects, but they were all cleared. Again, there was no evidence, and time again, the investigators, it just kept hitting a dead end. They just didn't know where to go with it. However, this is where shit gets like super crazy. 6 months later, a woman came forward with a possible lead. The lady was named Remy Chua, and she was also from the Philippines, but she also worked at Edgewater Hospital where Teresa worked. Now, they didn't work together. They didn't work the same shifts, but she did also work at the hospital. She was another therapist there. So, Detective Joe, I don't know how to say his last name, Stachula. We're just going to go with Detective Joe. He arrived at work one morning and to find a note on his desk asking him to call the Evanston Police Department about Teresa's murder. He was intrigued because there hadn't been any leads. It had been 6 months later. So he was a detective, and he immediately called the officer that, had called and left a message and told him, and the officer told him they had received a call from someone claiming to have information about the murder. The detective was told to get in contact with a man named Dr. Jose Chua, which was a doctor that lived in Chicago, and he also was the husband of Remy, the lady who said she had information. So Detective Joe and his partner, Detective Lee, they arranged to interview the doctor at his house. He provided them with information that they needed to solve the murder case, but it was like so bizarre and so crazy, the things that he was telling them, that they like didn't want to believe it, right? Like they were very skeptical. He didn't even want to tell it. The doctor seemed extremely embarrassed to tell the detectives what he knew. He didn't want to, it was like he didn't want to do it, but he had to do it. He asked them first. Yes.
Was that because of his wife?
Well, because of what happened, and I'm going to explain it in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah. So, he asked the police if they had any belief in the supernatural. Of course, the detectives were like, what? And then they had to pretend to be like non-judgmental because they wanted to know where this was going, right? Like, obviously, as a detective, you'd be like, oh, yes, of course. Sure. Where's this going, right? Is there a body here? Like, what should we need to know? Like, so they had to, for the sake of figuring out where this was going, pretend that, yes, they did. So the doctor, at this point, just is like, he just gives in. He's just like, I'm going to tell you everything. He tells them that his wife, Remy, had been possessed by the spirit of Teresa. Remy had started having really strange dreams involving Teresa, and she had attempted to ignore them, but one day, while she was asleep, she had gone into like this trance-like state and started speaking to her husband in a voice that was not her own. He goes on to tell the detectives that Remy had appeared to be completely comatose while she was talking to him, and he had never heard that voice that she was using and never heard it from anyone else or her. The voice told him that she was Teresita Basa and she needed his help. She claimed that she had been murdered by a man named Alan Showery, and she needed him to go to the police with this information. She insisted that Alan had arrived at her apartment to fix her television, but instead he just ended up killing her. She made one final plea for him to go to the police, and then the voice faded away. So when Remy awoke from her nap, her husband was like, hey, this happened. What was that about? And she had like no idea. She had no memory of it. She did not know what he was talking about. She didn't have a dream about it. And she was actually asleep when it happened. Like, she had no knowledge. She was like, I don't know. I know of her. She works at the hospital. And Alan was a man who also worked at the hospital. But again, none of the three of them ever worked the same shift. So, and if you remember, the memo had his initials, AS.
That's right.
Yes. So her husband is like, maybe it was just a weird, sleepwalking type thing. I mean, he is a doctor. He couldn't really understand, what was going on. He didn't really believe in the supernatural. He was very like scientific based. So her husband didn't want to know what to think. Like, here's his wife who's sleeping, and then suddenly it's like this other voice, like telling him he needs to go to the police, right? So he doesn't go to the police the first time. He just ignores it, lets it go. Remy just lets it go. I'm not sure what many of us would do in that situation, right?
I mean,
like,
what would you do?
Like, your spouse is obviously talking to you in a voice you've never heard while they're sleeping in like a zombie state, telling you that they're the ghost of someone that was murdered and trying to convince you to go to the police. Like, I don't know that I would have gone to the police either, Like,
I totally would have gone to the police.
I don't know. I mean, like, most police officers are going to look at you like you're insane, right? Like, they're not even going to listen to you. They're going to think you're just making up some nonsense and wasting their time, or they're going to, like, think you're insane and arrest you and send you to a mental hospital. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I don't know what I would have done.
But police officers or police departments have, what's the word, like asked for help for the consultants and hired psychics before when a case is so cold and they're looking for answers. I mean, that, like, I don't know that I would have gone like, hey, by the way, that my husband was possessed, and I don't know that I would have gone that way. I might have said like, I can't, like, you're not going to believe me how I know this. Maybe like look into this. I had a vision or something.
I think one thing he was worried about was he was a doctor. So like he was kind of, you know what I mean? He was a doctor and he was kind of like prominent or whatever. And so he didn't want to come off as being crazy. You know what I mean? And so he just kind of kept it to himself. However, he goes on to say that the following week, 1 week after that incident, the same thing happened. Once again, while Remy was napping, she started talking to Joe in that same voice as before, only this time the voice was angrier and demanded to know why Joe had not gone to the police. She was like, I told you who I was. I told you who killed me. I told you how they killed me. Why didn't you go to the police? And so at this point, he just kind of played along and told the voice that he was a doctor. He was very scientifically minded, and he wasn't going to go to the police without any tangible proof to back up this crazy claim that Alan was the one who murdered this woman.
Wow.
And so, according to Joe, the voice, who was at this point very annoyed,
wow,
rightfully so, I feel like I would be super fucking annoyed, told him that she would give him proof. She would give him the proof that he wanted to go tell the cops. She went on to say that Alan had stolen some jewelry from her apartment. They were very unique pieces that her father had purchased in France for her mother. After stealing the jewelry, she said Alan had given it to his girlfriend. And then the voice proceeded to give him names and phone numbers of 4 different people would be able to identify that jewelry. The 4 people who the ghost listed were Ron Samora, Ken Basa, Richard Pesciotti, and Ray Keens. Gave him names and numbers.
Was she like, bitch, write this down. Get a pen.
She's
What's wrong with you? I'm not here forever.
Here's the timeline. Here's everything you need to know.
I got the jewelry. I got the names. Now, what? You're not writing. Like, take notes.
So, although, again, he was still very hesitant of what the hell was happening, he was afraid. He was afraid that if he didn't tell the police, his wife would keep having these episodes, and he didn't know what might actually happen if this was somehow real, because the voice was very angry the second time and very annoyed that he had not gone to the police, right? And he didn't know how that would escalate.
So what kind of ghost is that? That's not crisis.
I'm going to just say a pissed off ghost. I don't know. I don't know at that point, right? Like an apparition, maybe it was like a crisis, because if this person murdered her, he probably would have murdered someone else. Who knows? And I'll talk a little bit more about him and the relationship with these women later. So maybe it was like a crisis thing.
But wasn't the messenger the one that tells you, like, don't go there, that's dangerous, don't do that? That's the messenger ghost, right?
The messenger ghost is ghosts who appear to family members to herald the death of another family member. Crisis apparitions are the ones who appear to inform someone of danger, like, don't go there, don't do that. So it was a crisis. Well, traditional apparitions are ones who appear to plea for help. So it could have been either, honestly.
I need to take a poll, like, right now. What's your answer, listeners? Okay, go.
Okay, hold on, I gotta find my spot. Okay, so although he was very hesitant because he still didn't understand what was going on, he was still very afraid that if he did not go to the police this time, he did not know how it would escalate, and he did not know what was happening to his wife, and he just was it wasn't so much that he wanted to help this ghost or whatever, it was more that he was afraid of what was going to happen to his wife. So obviously the detectives are very, very skeptical of his claim. But the name that he gave them did match the initials of the memo that Teresa had written herself, and had been the only piece of evidence that was left in her apartment when it was set on fire. And it was the only lead they had had in 6 months. So they decided they would, okay, fine. We'll look into Alan a little more. We'll see what's up there, right? So they ran a background check on Alan, and they found out that not only did he live near her, Teresita, but he also worked at the same hospital. He was just in a different department. They began to interview coworkers of Alan's, and several of them told the detectives that they had heard Alan mention he would be going to her apartment to fix her TV for her. And at that point, things started to add up. The memo with his initials, Remy's episodes, the background check, and now coworkers were confirming that they had heard him tell her he would go fix her television for her. So remember, the ghost voice said, he came to fix my TV, and then he murdered me. So coworkers, the police did not say anything to the coworkers. The coworkers willingly told them, well, he did say he was going to go and be at her apartment to fix her TV.
And the doctor would not have known that because
Remy was in a totally different department, so she wouldn't have known that. Like
they weren't friends.
No,
like this wasn't.
None of these people were friends. They just all happened to work at the same hospital. None of them were friends.
And if anybody's ever worked at a hospital, you know that you can't possibly be friends with everybody.
I mean, it's huge.
Right.
So the detectives show up at Alan's apartment where he and his girlfriend, I have no idea how to say her name, Yanka, are at home. We're just going to go with Yanka because that's what it looks like. Again, I'm very sorry. Yanka, if you're listening, I'm sorry. They explained why they were there, and Alan willingly went with them to the police department. He's like, yeah, I'll go with you. I'll answer your questions. So during their interviews with Alan...
Yanka is the one that is said to have had...
the jewelry.
The jewelry that Alan stole. Okay.
The voice says...
I'm with you.
Yeah, the voice told detectives... Now, the ghost did not mention the girlfriend by name. She just said he gave my jewelry to his girlfriend.
Okay.
So during the interviews with Alan, he at first denied ever going to the apartment. They began to go over some of the facts they had learned, such as his coworkers hearing him agree to fix her TV. And then, so shortly after that, he changes his story, shocking. He said that, yes, he did go to the apartment to fix her television, but once he got there, he realized he didn't have the right tools to fix it, so he left, and then he claims he told her that he would have to come back on a different day to fix it. He also claimed that when he left her apartment, she was very much alive and had gone straight back to his own apartment. He claimed that him and his girlfriend had been having electrical issues, so he was at home fixing those at the time of the murder. He said his girlfriend was there, she could back it up, that he was there fixing electrical issues. So the police are like, well, that's, maybe. And so they went back to the apartment to where his girlfriend had stayed because the girlfriend didn't go to the police station with them. One of the detectives goes back to the apartment to start asking her some questions. She tells them that she was unaware of any electrical problems in the apartment and made sure to note that Alan would have no idea how to fix any electrical issues, if there even were any, and that he wouldn't have known how to fix a television either. Like, he wasn't a handy type person. So then they ask her, okay, well, that's what he said he was doing. Did he happen to give you any jewelry lately? And she said, well, yes, he had given her a couple of pieces in February, which is when the murder happened, telling her that they were a late Christmas gift. She was actually wearing most of the pieces during the interview. So the police took the jewelry into evidence, and they contacted the 4 people that the voice had said could identify the pieces of jewelry.
Shut up.
Now, mind you, again, they only have these names because the ghost provided them to the doctor.
Shut up.
So they asked these 4 people to come to the police department. They all confirmed the jewelry was in fact stolen from her apartment and that those were the pieces that her father had bought from France.
Oh my God.
Okay. So the detectives confront Alan once again, now that the jewelry was confirmed to be hers, and he confesses to the murder. He just confesses. He admitted that he decided he was going to rob her because he was past due on his rent and he needed the money. And so he was just going to kill her and rob her and take her money and then, go on about his happy way. The theater tickets mentioned on the memo were going to be her thank you gift to him for fixing the TV. Like, she was going to buy theater tickets for him and his girlfriend as a thank you gift. That's why there was a memo that said theater tickets for AS. So anyways, she let him in the apartment willingly because she was expecting him to be there. He was coming to fix her television for her. But as soon as they got into the apartment, he then attacked her. He told the detectives that he had stripped her clothes off to make it look like it had been a sexual assault, and he had stabbed her once in the chest. His plan was to get enough money to pay his rent. However, unfortunately, she only had $30 on her. So that's when he decided, well, what can I do now? I've murdered her. It's only $30. That's when he found the jewelry. He started, and then he said, I started the fire to cover up my crimes. So Alan was arrested and he was charged with murder. The trial started basically almost 2 years later, July 21st, 1979. And after 4 weeks, it ended in a hung jury. They had a hard time believing that he was captured by the voice of a ghost, right? And what? And so it was a hung jury. And while he was in prison awaiting a retrial, he had another change of heart. He decided to plead guilty in exchange for a sentence reduction. He was given 14 years for murder, 4 years for robbery, and 4 years for arson. He ended up only serving 5 of those years, and he was released on parole. He got out after 5 years. So like July 1984. Sometime in 1984, he was released. So this, of course, became a media sensation, right? Ghost solves their own murder. I mean, that was like the headlines everywhere. People kept asking, and they still ask, but how could that really happen, though, right? Like, how could she project herself into this body and tell her story? The detectives that were involved in the case, they say, and they still say, they believe that's exactly what happened, that the ghost appeared to Remy to make sure Alan was punished. They say there is absolutely no other explanation for the case. There was one theory that Remy suspected Alan because she was actually very afraid of him.
Interesting. Really?
At the hospital, she didn't want to work any shifts where he would be working. She just described him as a scary man, but she never worked with him. They were not friends. She didn't know she didn't know Teresita. She didn't know her. She wasn't friends. So it wasn't like Teresita could tell her, hey, he's coming to my house. Hey, I'm buying him she wouldn't have known about the jewelry, any of that. Okay. So they say that she was afraid of him and was afraid to go directly to the police. So she made up this story as a way to tip off the police without it coming from her directly. She has denied this, And also, if she had made up the story, there's no way she would have known the 4 names and phone numbers of the people who could identify this jewelry.
Phone numbers?
Yeah, the voice gave him names and phone numbers for the 4 people to contact. And some of them were from the Philippines. Yeah. Some of they weren't all family members either. So there's no way she could have known that, right? And so when Teresita was murdered,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is so crazy.
So when Teresita was murdered, her case did not get a lot of media attention. Like, they didn't put a lot of it in the media because they were trying to, to know if someone confessed, like, they wanted to have the details. And then they had nothing to go on, really, other than the apartment was on fire. So it wasn't like they posted about these things and she may have read articles or something and formed her own opinions. There was absolutely no media about it. Again, she didn't work in the same department. She was not friends with her. There was not a lot of media or press about what happened. And then also her husband was a doctor. It's not like they were like crackheads off the street who were homeless making up a story. Like, they were, they were business professionals. They were really trusted. It was legitimate. I mean, everyone's legitimate, but you know what I mean? Like, they are people that the police would listen to. So,
wow.
In fact, the case being solved by the appearance of the victim's ghost actually got way more attention than the actual murder, which for obvious reasons. But, it's just, they cannot explain any other way that Remy would have known about some of the details that she gave, because the ghost explained that he killed her for rent money, explained that he took her jewelry, explained that he gave it to his girlfriend, again gave the names and numbers of these 4 people. So many believe that Remy just maybe have overheard the details while she was working, as she was also a respiratory therapist at the hospital with them. But again, the police cannot explain how she would have known about that jewelry, those names, the little details that were never, ever, ever released.
Phone numbers.
Yeah. And so that's my story. But it's a short story, but it was so crazy. I originally had heard this story on a YouTube channel, and I can't remember the name of the YouTube channel now. I watch a lot of different ones, but I was like, I have to do it. That's so crazy. But yeah, so she got murdered by this man. She projects herself into another worker of the hospital. And my theory is that she projected herself into another worker of the hospital because, like, maybe she had to have some kind of connection with whoever she was projecting herself into, and they were coworkers. And the coworker was someone that the police would listen to, like the doctor, like her husband. Someone would listen to her husband. And so that's why I think she chose Remy to project herself through.
Were they also both from the Philippines?
Yes. But they did not know each other in the Philippines. And they didn't really know each other
Avi.
here.
Oh, you're from Chicago. Do you know Alan?
Well, you know what I mean. But they were both from the Philippines. They did not know each other beforehand. They didn't really communicate much at the hospital because they worked different shifts. They were not friends. Some say, well, maybe she had gone to the apartment in the past for like a party or something. But even so, again, it goes back to how the hell would she have... Yeah, it goes back to how would she have known names and numbers of people who could identify this jewelry or know that it came from France or that it was from the father to the mother. There's just so many little details that it's really hard to say that she made the story up or that she just suspected Alan. So she just coincidentally guessed everything that he did, right? Like, because a lot of people said she could have just made those assumptions and just rolled with it. But are you kidding me? Like, at some point you have to say this is strange. Like, there's no way she could have predicted it. There's no way she could have made that up. And to get her husband involved and for their stories to be so aligned, like, it's great. And there's actually other stories, like you said, of psychics solving cases, of other ghosts appearing to solve their cases. But yeah, so this was actually not that long ago. Like I said, it happened in 1977. He did get tried in 1979, but he's already out. I don't know if he's still alive. I'm sure because there's no justice in this world. But But yeah, it was described as one of Chicago's, strangest cases because of how it was solved, really.
Wow. I yeah, so much. There's so much. It makes me want to tell you a story, but now I'm not going to tell you the story. I think I'm gonna try to tell you the story by actually doing the case.
Okay, yeah,
so I'm not going to tell you the story because I have a story to go with this story, but I'm gonna do the case. I haven't thought about it in 10 years, so I'm gonna go ahead. Yeah.
So I just looked up where is Alan Shorey 39 years after, the deal, and it says he was sentenced to 14 years. It said he was paroled in July of 1983, so actually only 4 years, not even 5. It says he's still alive. He's almost 70 years old, and
wow.
It says it seems that after he was released, he rejoined a mysterious woman named Naomi, who attended his court hearings in the late 80s and moved in with a female relative in California. So that's it. He's still alive. He's still roaming free. Like, he didn't really have to pay for his crime. I mean, he attacked her, robbed her, degraded her body, and then set her place on fire, and he served 4 years. It didn't say why he was paroled, and nothing that I read, it said why he was paroled. But yeah, he got out after 4 years, like a little over 4 years. I thought it was 5, but it was 4. Which just...
What a POS. What a POS. Okay, so here we go.
Yeah.
Answers to the question of the week, which was if you could have anybody other than Morgan Freeman narrate your life, who would it be? Trevor said Sir David Attenborough, which I think is a fantastic answer. RC says James Earl Jones. Oh my God, that's so good. It's really good. That's a good one. Dev says Jenny Slate 1000%. Oh my God. That's perfect. Oh, she's amazing. You just need to find out who she is. She's amazing. Jorge says Sir Ian McKellen. Oh, touche. Bill says Zach De La Roca. Mark says Sir Anthony Hopkins. A lot of sirs here. Sir David Attenborough, Sir Ian McKellen, Sir Anthony Hopkins. A lot of knights. All right. Jesse says Samuel L. Jackson. My life requires a liberal dosing of motherfucker. Angela says Sam Elliott. That's a good one. That's a good one. Joy says a mix between Andy Samberg and Samuel L. Jackson. All right, that's interesting. And Sarah says definitely Drew Barrymore. So, I can see that. Yeah. I can see that.
I thought they were all good answers. I actually had to look a couple of them up, but I was like, oh my God, those people are perfect. I love all the voices. I noticed that Glenn is just, I guess, ignoring us. He's busy living his best life in the UK, but I just want to say we miss you.
He might be in Facebook jail.
I mean, I feel like that's just an excuse so he doesn't have to talk to us. So Glenn, if you're listening, I'm on to you. But in all actuality, I hope you guys are doing well over there. I hope wherever you guys are listening from, you're doing okay. And, living your best lives and not sick or anything. Not in someone's basement, or attic.
Someone's basement.
Hey, I just watched Don't Breathe for the first time yesterday because the sequel's coming out soon, and so now I'm like,
I haven't seen that.
Don't Breathe.
Wait, is that the one with John Krasinski from The Office and Emily Blunt? They're married in real life. No. But they have to be real quiet.
That's you're thinking of A Quiet Place.
A Quiet Place. Okay.
Don't Breathe.
I haven't seen
like
that.
Supposed to be like a horror movie, and the sequel is about to
Oh.
come out. They just had the trailers for it.
Oh, is it good?
It's good. Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh.
I like it. I mean, I wasn't scared by it, but I thought it was good. So if you haven't seen it, I recommend seeing it and then.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Anyways, so yes, it looked good. Yep.
So if Glenn doesn't answer this question, I was going to say Simon Pegg, not because he's English, but because he's snarky. That's a good English actor who is just snarky, and I kind of feel like that fits Glenn's.
Yes.
Like,
love it.
Comedy. I love it.
I did go somewhere that had BrewDog on tap, but it was a non-alcoholic BrewDog. I was like, oh my God, I can't find it anywhere. Anyways,
listen.
Yeah. I post all of the beer adventures on an app called Untapped. We have a Case Files group on there that you can send a friend request and join or whatever. Message me if you can't find it. I post every review of every beer. They're not just local beers. They're any craft beer that I so happen to drink. Follow us on all the things. We're on all the platforms. Messages.
We love you so much. We'll see you next week. But until then, please be safe. I know people don't like wearing the masks, but if I have to wear a bra, you can wear a mask in public. Come on. You don't want to see these girls hanging down, hit my knees. I wear them for you, not for me.
I definitely wear a bra for other people.
Exactly. Listen, we have to wear these awful things. But until then, please be kind to one another. And, if somebody speaks to you from your partner in a voice you don't know and tells you to solve a murder, just go fucking do it.
First message us. Message us first. And then go tell the police. But definitely
we'll record it. We'll record it.
Definitely don't listen to Kat. Definitely message us first. And then go solve the case. We want to solve it with you. We want to be your support, your team. We want to document it. Someone needs to know your story. We're here for you. Totally for you, not for anything of our advantage. It would all be for you.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Until then, bye.